Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. And I'd like to call the regular school committee meeting to order. Today is February 9th, 2021, and we are starting our meeting tonight at 7:10. Pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order modifying the state's open meeting law issued March 12th, 2020, the February 9th, 2021 meeting of the Peabody School Committee will be held in the library of the Higgins Middle School for school committee members, superintendent, assistant superintendent, and central office administrators as requested by the superintendent. And today we have our superintendent, Josh Vidala, and our assistant superintendent, Chris Lord, with us. In accordance with the governor's order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, the regular meeting of the Peabody School Committee will not allow in-person attendance to members of the public, but every effort will be made for the public to adequately access the meeting in real time via technological means. Alternative public access to this meeting will be provided in the following manner. We are being broadcast live by Peabody Access TV. Real-time public participation can be addressed to the Peabody School Committee utilizing Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. The application will allow users to view the meeting and make a comment during public participation. And as we have now for a matter of months, anybody who's interested, please raise your hand at that time of the agenda, and we will take your comments. And the minutes of the meeting are also being recorded by our school committee recording secretary, Leanna Harris. I'd like to start the meeting. If everybody could please rise for a moment of silence. And now if you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. We do have minutes from our January 26, 2021 regular school committee meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to receive and approve.
Second.
Okay. Further motion by Mrs. Dunn to approve the January 26, 2021 regular school committee meeting minutes. It was seconded by Mr. Olympio. Any comments? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
Terrific, thank you. Next, we'll go to approval of bills. We have a couple of warrants. Mr. Olympio, turn it over to you.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 4695 in the amount of $6,014,343.39, subject to audit.
Second?
Great. You've heard the motion for approval of warrant 4695. It's made by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Olympio. Another warrant?
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 4696 in the amount of $2,862,436.87, subject to audit. Second.
Okay, thank you. Further motion by Mr. Olympio for approval of warrant number 4696. That motion was seconded by Mr. Hockman. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Olympio. We do have one item under continued business.
Sorry.
Mrs. Dunn, can we go to you for an update on the Welch School MSBA project update?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Welch School Building Committee has actually had a meeting as well as a community meeting. The full committee met last Thursday, to go over the next steps in the project, and what the next step is going to require is that the committee approve the submission of the preferred schematic report. And the schematic report is one in which the designers and the OPM have worked on looking at all of the aspects of the school, all of basically the working parts of the school, the inside, the outside, as well as the educational program. And the report that they have prepared and will be submitting is to give the MSBA the information it needs to move forward on approval of the full project. The final vote on that report will take place at the upcoming School Building Committee meeting, which is next Thursday at 9:30. And at that time, we'll take a formal vote for submission of the report as prepared. Now, in the meantime, we had our second community meeting last night, and at that time, people were able to see and hear about the different pieces of this report and all of the thought and discussions that went into deciding what type of heating and air conditioning system to use, whether to go with gas or electric, what types of changes need to be made to the actual physical building in order to accommodate these. And it went through discussion of the financial aspects of each possible rendition of the project so that people could understand what each step would entail. And the recommended solution is actually, of course, a renovation. You have to remember this started out to get windows and heating units. And now, because the MSBA has put us in the core program, it's going to allow us to do some more things. Right at its very basic was to bring the building up to code, to improve the electrical and the plumbing and all of those components of the building. And then it expands out from that, which allows a new kind of a heating and cooling system at Welch, which it did not have when it was built. We know times have changed and people are looking at the buildings to become year-round. So all of these discussions and considerations are coming to fruition and are actually being put down on paper and are available for people to see. The community meeting was broadcast through the courtesy of PAT, and it's available if people want to watch it again. And it got a very good response already. People have been messaging and saying they really enjoyed it and that they thought it was great. And we will continue always to have more community meetings so that the members of the public can find out exactly where we are in the project and what we're doing. So right now, we are in Module 3 with the MSBA process, and we're moving towards Module 4. We are on time. We are really working hard to keep to a very tight construction schedule. I'm sorry, not a construction schedule at this time, just the preparation schedule, but moving right along to stay on a really good schedule so that we can accommodate the school program. So.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. That was a very thorough report, so I appreciate that. That covered a lot of ground. There's been a great deal of work, and again, want to thank you. Mr. Hockman's on the committee as well, Mr. Melville, and Mr. McGinn from the school committee, but we have a terrific team that's been working hard on this. So thank you for that report, and I think another step, we're in another step in the right direction.
Absolutely, and it was really, I was covering 3 meetings in a way, so
Yep.
It was a little long tonight. So.
No, thank you, that was terrific. Okay, so let's go to the next item, our superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to Dr. Vidala.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight we're fortunate enough to have virtually Dave Gravel and Mary Bellavance from the Peabody Education Foundation. So I'm bringing them into the meeting now, and I'd like to ask them to please unmute and say hello. And they have a great presentation. Today we're going to be talking about just an update on the district goals, and one of our big goals is about community partners, and I think the gold standard for community partners is the Peabody Education Foundation. So Dave and Mary are going to present a little bit about some of the happenings of this year and give us an update. So Dave and Mary, if you want to say hello, and I will share your presentation on the big screen.
That's awesome. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And Mr. Mayor, School Committee, Dr. Lord, Dr. Vidala, great seeing all of you. So, even in this virtual world.
Okay, take it away.
All right, super. So tonight we wanted to, we know that you're busy and you've had lots of not so great news, and we wanted to share with you some great news, some great things that are happening between the PEF, the Peabody Cultural Collaborative, and and a number of nonprofits out there, as well as the Peabody Public Schools. I mean, for those of you that probably most of you know that the PEF has really been around for since 1985, so roughly 36 years. And we've had the same core mission for that 36 years, which is really to provide financial and human resources to the Peabody Public Schools to enhance the educational experience of our children. Short mission statement with a lot of content, but clearly that has not changed. That has followed through year after year, resulting in, to date, over $1 million being put back into the school system over our time and affecting literally tens of thousands of students over that period of time. And our traditional programs, which everybody is kind of familiar with, our guest reader program, where we have 65 readers go into classrooms and read to students on a weekly basis, and our PEF grant, formerly known as our Best Bet grant program, where we provided funds to classroom teachers for innovative curriculum ideas, our mentoring and careers program, where we brought students to the workplace, brought the workplace to students, and also shared career experiences and a big career day at the high school. Those are all of our traditional programs, and like all of you, in March of last year, everything came to a sudden halt. We were stymied. Most of our programs require, face-to-face in the classroom, being with the teachers and the students, and basically we're stumped. And we knew it was having a significant impact on our kids, and we knew how difficult it was for all of you. So for a little bit of time there, we couldn't even fulfill all of our grants because the programs had to be stopped. So we realized we needed to adapt our programming to support the changing environment that was going on. And the bottom line was we wanted to continue to do more to help, to be a partner with the school system in a way that would be meaningful. So we can go to the next slide. So the first thing we thought of was, well, if we want some new initiatives, we need to create a new program, a way to raise some money. So we started our Help Us Help Our Kids fund, and we moved it out via advertising and on social media and through the press, through our website, just reaching out to the public to try to raise additional funds so that we could fund new programs and provide more and different support. We immediately worked with and started to talk to Dr. Badali as well as Dr. Lord about how we can get our collaboration, our partnership closer, and what could we do? What would be the special things that they needed during this very unique time? And we wanted to make an impact. And by the way, it's a shameless pitch, but I want to make sure that everybody out there knows that the PEF is a 501c3, and we are taking donations regularly. So please don't be afraid if you're watching this on TV. Every dollar, we are a 100% volunteer organization, and every dollar that you contribute goes back to our schools and back to our kids at peabodyedfoundation.org. So if we can move to the next slide. So we decided, okay, working with Dr. Lord and Dr. Vidala, we said, okay, what is it that we can help you do? And they talked about the difficulties of the hybrid model, and the fact that it was an unequal environment for some kids, because families were having to make decisions between paying rent, buying food, and school supplies. And it was fine while they were in school because there were plenty of supplies and plenty of availability, but when kids went home, there was a real need for some real basic stuff so that they could work with their Chromebooks and in their online performance, be able to work at the same rate and pace as the other kids. So we decided to build what we call homeschool kits. Basically, it contains paper, pencils, crayons, glue sticks, all the things you would typically think of that, most households have, but some don't. Math cards, we found these really cool little whiteboards and eraser markers so that when the kids were engaged with their teachers online, they had the right tools to be able to do what they needed to do. I thought it was a brilliant idea from Dr. Vidala to really recognize that we didn't know how many at first, but that there were kids out there that would really struggle because their parents could not afford it. So he went back to the administration and our teachers, and they identified 340 students in need of assistance. And with that knowledge and with their help and with their guidance in terms of what should go into those kits, the PEF funded and assembled 340 school kits. If anybody had been over at Grayvock at that time, they would have seen that we converted our now empty office space into a warehouse and an assembly area led by Chief Assembler and Purchasing Agent Mary Bellavance, as we put all of this together and had it then delivered to the various schools based on need via the school system, bus drivers, etc. So it was really quite a cool project. We would not have been able to do that project without the help of the Carol Remick Foundation. Basically, they heard about our need. They were touched by what we were trying to do, and they donated $4,000 to help fund this effort. And I'm pleased to report that, within 2 weeks, we were able to acquire, assemble, and distribute these homeschool kits to our students. Next slide, please. Another way we were putting some PEF funds to work it was a part of a grant that came through about having classroom calm spots. Normally we receive requests from 50 to 75 teachers for grant applications. And a couple of grant applications came in, basically talking about the need for calm spots inside of the school environment, a place where kids could go and if they're fatigued or irritable, especially during these times, and we sort of set up we want to set up these areas where they can really use fidgets and sensory support items that help them take a break within the class. So using that concept, which came in from one of the teachers, actually it was two, we were contacted by, we contacted the J.B. Thomas Hospital Leahy Foundation through Nat Magna, and in 2 days we were able to not only secure a grant from the foundation, they awarded us $8,000 in combination with our money to provide classroom calm spots not only in 2 schools but across our elementary schools. And these are just now going into place. So another great situation where one nonprofit, one foundation is helping another, and together we're helping the school system. Next slide, please. The one we really was quite an exciting situation for us is we were contacted by the Peabody Cultural Collaborative, and they told us about the fact that they had funds that were originally earmarked for a Curious City, but due to the pandemic, that wasn't going to happen. So they indicated that, they wanted to work with the schools to create programs that really make education fun through the arts. We thought it was a great idea. We facilitated a meeting between PEF and the school department and really charted the school department. Please come up with how we can make this make sense and help using these funds to bring really fun through the arts into the classroom so that we keep with the mission of the Cultural Collaborative, we keep with the mission of the Peabody Education Foundation, and we're driving more support into the day-to-day classroom for, let's face it, for those of us that are on Zoom meetings, 7 days a week, it's kind of like, after a while, you really want to do something else. They came back with a program called YAMA, which is Young Audiences of Massachusetts for the Arts, and the YAMA, the Arts for Learning, and the YAMA program, we were able to look at demos of, I would encourage anybody who wants to just go online, Google YAMA, and you'll find this information. But we decided collectively with the Peabody Cultural Collaborative to be able to fund pre-K to 8 a whole strand of programs which will literally affect and be seen by every student from pre-kindergarten, kindergarten to the 8th grade throughout our system. And they do this in a combination of virtual and live, but we've already launched our first one. Dr. Lord had told us it was a huge success. We just signed the contract for the second one, and we hope to be able to use the funds that the Peabody Cultural Collaborative is providing, and thankfully they're providing this, to really bring an enjoyable experience to students who kind of got the rough end of the stick over the last year or so, and really hopefully make them, really engage them and the teachers, by bringing arts to the classroom and coordinating it with the curriculum. So really excited about that. Press release going out on that. Went out today, should be picked up by the papers tomorrow. And we wanted to make you aware of that because this is a program that will affect all of our children. Next slide, please. Putting PEF funds to work with math manipulatives, this is a work in progress. This is like math in focus. And we are in the process of working with Dr. Lord and Dr. Vidala in terms of using the Singapore math curriculum and bringing these math manipulatives into the classroom. They're quite pricey, we've discovered that Dr. Lord has a way of somehow squeezing vendors, and he's really done a great job of driving down the price and helping us, because we want to provide this throughout the K-5 experience. We don't want to just pick individual schools. And I think we're almost there, and as soon as we get to a pricing level that can be funded through the PEF, then we are going to fund that program for the Peabody Public Schools. And a lot of this is made capable, again, it's the PEF is only as good as the people who provide for us, and Lion War Automotive has provided for us year after year after year, and we're going to be using a part of the $100,000 that they committed to us over a 5-year period to be able to pay for this program and support our students with this, with something that integrates well with the Common Core state standards. Next slide, please. And then, of course, there's, like all of you, I see, you've learned to repurpose meetings, and we're kind of repurposing and going virtual with some of our programs that originally were built for and meant to be in person. We originally, last year, towards the end of the year, had put together a virtual guest reader program, but it was more of a virtual guest reader library, and it can be found on our Peabody Ed Foundation website. And the community volunteers who were reading to classrooms had indicated that they'd be willing to read to a camera, and so they read to a camera and they read books. While it's a nice idea, I don't think it has the same impact as what Dr. Vidala came up with, which is if we could get our guest readers to engage in a virtual classroom live, then that would be a great help to the teachers. And so we recruited 29 guest readers who read virtually twice a week to classrooms throughout the city, and basically have brought the guest reader program back to life for the PEF and inside of the classroom through video conferencing. Next slide, please. So, you know, I used to love that quote about, it's actually not a quote, it's a curse. It says, "May you live in interesting times." And we are certainly all living in interesting times. I know all of you are. And before I quit, let me say thank you, all of you, for doing what you're doing. It's incredibly important. I sat on a school committee for 8 years there, and I know the work, I know the difficulty of the work in normal times. I can't even fathom how difficult it must be in times like this. But I can commit to you that the PEF will continue to collaborate with the schools and other nonprofits. We will locate financial and human resources to help our children, and we will continue our mission going forward. And I think, you know, from all bad comes some good. And the some good is that this had a way of bringing us closer together with the Peabody Public Schools, bringing us closer and working with collaboration with the schools, the school administration, the teachers, and the community to help at a common goal, which is our kids. So I want to thank you very much for the audience this evening and for giving us the opportunity to tell you what we're doing, and I would certainly entertain any questions. I want to also thank, you know, there are 24, 25 volunteers who are on our board from the school system, from private enterprises, from the municipality, working hard behind the scenes, not asking for credit, always the unsung heroes, putting things together. The Mary Bellavances of the world, who spends endless amount of time. Best thing that ever happened to me at Greylock was Mary came there and really helped with this effort and has made the PEF a much better program as a result. But we have all those volunteers, they work real hard, and I want to publicly thank them for all that they've done to help keep the PEF going and help us help our kids. And I also want to thank the community for being so supportive.
All right. Well, before we open it up for questions, I did want to thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mary. Dave, you've made such a difference. You've brought PEF to a whole new level, and we couldn't be more appreciative of your hard work and stepping up for our community. And I did want to thank all the members of the PEF as well. Such a very caring, dedicated group of people that, as you said, do work in the background, never looking for credit, but business leaders, elected officials, educators, parents. It's really a tremendous group. That was a terrific presentation, Dave, and very appreciative, again, of your hard work in making that happen. And we missed Mary at City Hall, but I know that was Greylock's gain. So that did hurt me a little bit when you said the best thing happened.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes your loss is my gain. What can I say?
No, but that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I did want to open up any questions or any thoughts at this point. I know how all of us are just amazed by what PEF does for us. Mr. Amico.
Sure, great. Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Gravel and Ms. Bellavance, thank you so much for all that you do. Peabody Ed Foundation, it's a crown jewel. It's an amazing part of this city. It is what this city's all about coming together and giving back to those who really need it. And Dave, I think you retired from the city council last year, but you didn't retire from doing what you do best, and that's taking care of other people. And thank you so much for all your generosity and your time that you give to the city, along with your wife Kathy and your whole company. Just a great organization. We're lucky to have you here in Peabody. Mary, thank you so much for all that you do. It's amazing. Anything you touch turns to gold. You're awesome. Keep it up, and we need you. And to the community, this is just one of those organizations where if everyone pitches in just a little bit, we can help a lot of people, help a lot of kids. And
I'm really happy about the guest reader program continuing, because that's a lot of fun. I'm really pleased about that program, and you make it seamless, and it's a very enjoyable thing. It's good to see it continue, and it's good to see these new initiatives that you've taken that really, like Mr. Amico said, it's brought you up to a whole nother level, and just want you to know we really do appreciate it. Thank you. And it's nice to see you, too.
Yeah, you as well. So it's nice to see all my friends in Peabody. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Olympio?
Yes, thank you. Dave, Mary, thank you for all that you've done, and PEF, everybody that's involved, and it really warms my heart that it's really about making people, making difference in people's lives, and there are some students out there and families that are hurting more than others, and it just really warms my heart that you're making that much of a difference in somebody's life, and it doesn't go unnoticed, and it's really greatly appreciated from where I sit, and certainly with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Okay, Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you. Dave and Mary, it's great to see you, even from a distance. I'm just going to pile on with what everyone's saying about how grateful we are for what you folks do, not only for the city, but our students more than anything else. You guys keep up the good work. Please do it. You back us up here in the Peabody Public School System, and we're so grateful for what you do. And it's great to see you guys, really.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Arnottis. And Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave, Mary, it's terrific seeing you tonight. Thank you for telling us about what Peabody Ed Foundation does. Mayor Betancourt hit it on the head when he said that Peabody Ed Foundation has really stepped it up. With the leadership that's in place through Dave and Tom Gould and Mary and a whole bunch of other people, all 24 members, like you said, Dave. Peabody Ed Foundation has really grown, but it's transitioned this year, and it's transitioned in a time of need. Peabody Ed Foundation was really about providing enrichment programs for students, and you've now described the transition that Peabody Ed Foundation has taken by providing basic tools to students so that they can succeed while continuing with the enrichment piece. Fantastic job. We can't do what we do without you, so thank you for partnering with us and continuing to partner with us, and look forward to the relationship continuing for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great, Mr. Hockman. Thank you. Turn it back to you, Dr. Vidala.
Sure. So, Dave and Mary, before I continue on, I just want to thank you for the incredible partnership. Tonight, I'll be presenting on the update on the district goals, and our goals align with our strategic plan, which has six major facets to the strategic plan. And it's so impressive that the work that you've done with Peabody Education Foundation and the partnership we have aligns with all 6 areas. And as I go through them, I'll highlight that for the committee as well. But it really has been strategic, and it's been thoughtful about how we've rolled this out. One of our big themes is equity and access, and some of these programs have really brought that to the forefront and given access to our kids. And our other goal is, our other big theme is building a community. And I can't think of a better way than the Peabody Education Foundation and all the people that have been part of it have been able to connect the school system to the community and to so many other nonprofits that really want to give back. But PEF has really been the hub that has brought it all together. And so I know that's through your leadership, and I can't thank you enough. And as I go through the update on the goals, I think people will really realize how much of an influence the Peabody Education Foundation has had on all of our 6,000 students and their families. So thank you so much. We really appreciate all the work that you do and look forward to the continued partnership.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it too. Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to bring you guys back into the, you'll go back into the role of attendee. So I'll move you to an attendee. Okay, thank you again. And now I will share the next presentation. Oops, not that. Okay. So the remainder of the superintendent's report will be an update on the district goals, which are themes, as I've previously discussed, are building a community and equity and access. And then I just have a quick update on the budget process, where we are today and where we're going, and then some recognition for our Project 351 ambassadors and a donation that the Carroll School got. So as I was just mentioning, we have our big theme of hope this year: high expectations, optimism, personalized learning, and equity and access, and our two themes of building a community and, of course, really that focus on equity and access. So under building a community, we had three major areas of effective communication, collaborative relationships, and community partnerships. And so in terms of effective communication, you know, really the reopening process has been an important piece of this, and we strive in the Peabody Public Schools to really effectively communicate to all of our stakeholders, to the school committee, to our parents, to our teachers, and of course to our students. So it began this summer with the reopening process. We had our task force, our working groups that really identified some of those areas, and then school-based teams. And that reopening process involved over 200 individuals that developed the plan that we ended up moving forward. And you know, we were able to present that for community feedback, and then we altered it, and then we were able to start on September 16th with our full hybrid model, one of the first districts our size to be able to do that. So we're really proud of that. In terms of the entry plan that Dr. Lord and I have worked on, interviewing people, doing focus groups, and our school visits have really informed the work that we're doing here. And we've tried to utilize some traditional methods of communication, such as the all calls that you hear and the email messages and posting on our website, sending our mailers home. But the pandemic has given us an opportunity for new opportunities for communication. And one of those you just saw, the Peabody Education Foundation coming in virtually. We were really impressed with our teachers in our schools. For parent-teacher night, we did virtual conferences, and in every single school, the amount of people who participated actually went up. So that was a really important message for us, that some people weren't able to come because they couldn't leave work, or they couldn't get their, you know, they couldn't leave their kids at home because they didn't have daycare, but they were able to engage with us in the virtual environment. So in terms of communication, we're always striving to find additional new opportunities to communicate, and we'll continue to do so. Our next one is collaborative relationships, and I think, you know, our work with the Peabody Education Foundation has really helped us to identify some challenges and some opportunities within the pandemic. So we do recognize that the face-to-face and the building of relationships is much more difficult. And as a first-year superintendent in Peabody, I recognize that that's a challenge to build collaborative relationships. But we did, you know, visit every school, and we're able to do that. And we're looking for additional opportunities in creative ways, such as our virtual reader program. We've had the opportunity to have professional collaboration for our pre-K all the way through grade 12. For example, on Wednesdays, we have a period where the specialists are doing a virtual special for all students, and we have now an opportunity for our first grade teachers in all 8 buildings to be able to collaborate virtually, which we would have never been able to have that opportunity. So we're using this as an opportunity as well. We're finding new ways to engage with families, as I talked about, having these virtual meetings, but also, you know, there's new opportunities for translation. There's new opportunities to engage more families or bring more people to the table that we wouldn't normally have. So some of the next steps that I really wanted to highlight is at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, which has a new principal as well. In our NEASC report, we saw that the climate and culture was something that they want us to address, and I think we've all heard some of the need for the climate and culture, especially in the pandemic. And you know, the new principal, Mr. Magno, has identified it is difficult. We haven't been able to go to basketball games or sporting events or some of the theater programs and some of the extracurriculars to be able to meet and greet the parents face-to-face, which is so important. So they've tried to do things. We were able to have some small-level events, like when we celebrated the students who got the student athletes who signed on to college, and we were able to have some face-to-face time there. So we're going to partner with Teachers 21, and we're going to really do a deep dive, interviews and focus groups and a survey with parents and students and faculty to get a real broad brush of what is the climate and culture, what are some of the concerns there, and how do we address them. And so we're really excited about this moving forward, and that's really part of our building a community goal, and it's part of our entry plan, and really making sure that we're listening to everyone at the high school, listening to the parents, and giving them a voice so that we can really address any of the concerns that they may have. And then finally, under building a community, we have our community partnerships. And so you heard from the Peabody Education Foundation today. They talked a little bit about the cultural collaborative with the supports that we have from the arts in IAMA. Some of the other things that we're doing within the community is, really the work that Dr. Lord has done with the alternative childcare is really a model for the entire state. A lot of schools didn't want to touch this. A lot of districts said, what you need to do, we have enough of a problem trying to open up schools in a pandemic. We can't be concerned about parents and their childcare. But that's not what we did. And Dr. Lord, I have to give a ton of credit to, because he's really taken the bull by the horns here. Is it hoo-ah, right? So he's really taken the bull by the horns here, and he's partnered with FKO and the YMCA, and that's really been a huge undertaking, but it's really helped our families. And they're starting to talk to people from other communities saying, why aren't you doing what Peabody's doing? So that's a huge thing. Another community partnership that we have is with Hanscom Air Force Base. They do the Star Base. The kids used to go there, but we were able to accommodate them at the Brown School and some other places where we're actually doing it here, and the kids are really benefiting from it. And then, of course, earlier this year, you heard from Maria Ferry and some of the CTE externships that they're doing, where they're going out into the community, medical assisting and robotics, and some of the work that they're doing with fiber optics and RCN. So we're really excited about our community partnerships as well. So the second half of our theme is around equity and access, and that's really where we focus on curriculum, student support, and social emotional learning. So in terms of curriculum, earlier this year, Dr. Lord presented about the K-12 curriculum maps that are already posted online. We're doing ongoing revisions in alignment with that. I think you heard about some of the materials that we're able to bring in, such as those math and focus manipulatives and things like that, to really enhance our curriculum. In terms of student support, Peabody High School has implemented the advisory program, which is really helping to support the students. We discussed the climate and culture, the deep dive that we'll be doing, and we're really looking to increase the amount of interventions that kids get, really looking at that data, which we're going to show in a little bit, and we're really trying to increase Cohort C access to bring more kids in and increase the number of kids that get in to school more often. We also have had a focus on social emotional learning. Earlier this year, I had sent to you the SEL grant that we got, which we're able to bring in some translators and able to start to look at some social emotional skills. We're looking to increase the awareness and the access to supports in terms of mental health and behavioral health needs. We had a great presentation earlier this year from some of our students, and really it's permeating through all of the curriculum that we're doing, including the calming spots that PEF had talked about. So really trying to address those needs in real time within the classroom so it's more inclusive. One of the things that we're most excited to share is at the beginning of the year with our school improvement plans, our principals really took a leap of faith, and they were vulnerable by showing the baseline data that we had. And so, they were nervous about that because in the spring, our kids didn't have the same access to their teachers, and they ended up showing that, we saw some regression in that fall, and we said to you, teachers matter. And we said to you that give us time, give us some face time, give us a consistent model, and we'll show improvement. So these slides are courtesy of Renaissance, which has been a partner for the elementary level. And so our early literacy test is mostly for kindergarten and first grade students, but all the way up to grade 5 if they're really struggling. So in the fall, we had about 500 students take this test. And over here, you'll see 48% were exceeding expectations, 15% were meeting expectations, and then we had these numbers here, 18% not meeting and 19% partially meeting. So of those 500 kids, anybody who was exceeding expectations was then allowed to move. They graduated from the early literacy test, and they moved into the STAR reading data. So this winter data is a smaller subset because a number of those kids had moved on. So this number here, 57% of the kids remaining, there's 125 kids that took this test, 57% in the winter exceeded expectations, and 13% were meeting expectations. So these numbers here on the right, even though they went down, they represent a significant less number of students. So over here, this 18% represents about 125 students, where this only represents about 25 students district-wide that are not meeting expectations on the early literacy test. So we've really seen significant improvement in our younger grades, and it shows that our teachers matter, and the work that they're doing is really helping out, having that consistent method, that consistent instruction as we go. So Our next slide here is that star reading data. So this is mostly grades 1 through 5. And so we saw here that 27% were meeting expectations and 6 were exceeding expectations. And remember, we talked about this as a year-end benchmark, that we had some kids, we were expecting a large number of kids here in the partially meeting expectations. And we can see that we've seen an increase here. And again, this number has increased the number of students that are taking the test. And so those early literacy kids are now in this data set for the winter. And we're seeing a reduction in the kids that are not meeting, a reduction of the kids that are partially meeting, and a big bump up here. So we're at nearly 40% of kids are already meeting the year-end benchmark. And as we progress through the year, our next goal is to bring back that summative assessment in the spring and show a huge growth here. But I think what we're seeing here for our elementary students is that the teachers matter and that the focused work on instruction matters, and the more time we have with them, the more progress we're going to see. But we're really happy with the amount of growth that we've seen here. That was our reading data. And in terms of our math data, we see a similar thing here. We had 24% in the fall that were meeting expectations, and here we've gone up to 29%. And we've seen a reduction of 4% over here from the students not meeting, and they're starting to partially meet. So we're progressing towards that year-end benchmark, and we're seeing growth in the number of kids who are meeting or exceeding expectations even halfway through the year, that they're really on track to meet those year-end benchmarks. And so our goal for the next data set at the end of the year is that these kids that are partially meeting expectation, our expectation is that we're really moving up to the final end-of-year grade level benchmark. So we're really pleased with this progress, and this is probably the best metric that we do have is our growth data in reading and math. So on the left-hand side here, we see our growth in reading, and we're seeing that 60% of our kids are showing either typical or high growth, 35% showing really high growth. So they're really growing more than their peers compared to all the other kids across the Renaissance network. And so, we do have 40% of our kids who are, even though they're growing, it's considered low growth. So we're really focusing on them to make sure that we move it up. But these numbers are really impressive. And in math, it's even higher. 65% of our kids, including 36% that are really showing high growth. And so that's the continued improvement that we're looking for from all students. But we're really pleased that these numbers, so the target is usually 40 to 60, and we've exceeded that in both areas. So we're really impressed with the amount of growth that we've seen, and we know that we're not done. We still have high expectations that we're going to do this for all students, and we really want to continue to push them. But this is certainly encouraging given the fragmented hybrid learning model that we've had, that our kids are still growing, and that time with the teachers has really helped. And this slide is looking at the high school vision of a graduate. And so this is a similar model that you saw last year. I think it was Dr. Lord and Mr. Haas and the 21st Century team presented. And so what you see here is in the first quarter at Peabody High School, we had 47% of students that were meeting or exceeding expectations in the Pathfinder vision of a graduate, and in the second quarter we had 54. And so you see that from our effective communicator, and we see this growth as we go. One thing that we've talked about is that the artist innovator was a little bit flat, and so part of the reason why is it was one of our highest indicators the first quarter, but some of the artwork that you see and some of the innovation that is done is really going to take off in the third and fourth quarter. But we're really pleased that we're seeing an upward trajectory in these areas, and the kids are really progressing towards those standards. So in terms of the next steps for building a community, we plan on continuing to identify and strengthen our effective communication, really focusing on the budget priorities that will enhance professional collaboration, and exploring ways to deepen and expand the community partners that we had discussed earlier. In terms of equity and access, really continue to focus on that curriculum alignment and having those high expectations for all students, so that when we come back and report out at the end of the year, we'll really see high levels of growth across the board. In terms of student support, again, as we look at our budget process, we'll look to increase the ability for interventions and extension activities for our students, and looking to try to get some more of those creative opportunities for everyone. And then really, finally, prioritizing access to mental and behavioral health supports, as well as student social emotional needs. So, you know, these are really, this is the bedrock of what we've been working on this year, what our primary goals are, and where our initiatives and our focus should be. So that's an update. I'd like to pause here and see if anybody has any questions about our process towards the goal. And then, of course, in the coming weeks, if there's any additional information that you'd like me to send, I can certainly send that to the committee members. It's a lot to digest.
But
Okay, so we can certainly come back. So just have a couple more updates before I conclude the superintendent's report. So an update on the budget. The preliminary state budget was released on January 27th. So that's when the governor's budget comes out. It's still a proposal. I'm happy to report that Peabody's Chapter 70 amount has increased by 3.48%, and the overall net school spending is up 2.16%. So we see a little bit of an increase. So what we're doing right now with our school business manager and all of our team is we're developing our initial draft of the fiscal 22 budget. So that's underway. Over the next month, we'll be working with our principals and our curriculum directors and the directors of each area to really put forth a proposed first draft of the budget to share with the committee, and we look for that first budget meeting to be scheduled sometime in about a month, maybe in late March. We'll have the first proposal, and we're hoping that, you know, over time, we'll meet a few times, really dig into the budget deeply, and be ready for that May deadline. I know we went into June last year. It was a unique year, but we'd be looking to approve the budget in May, as you typically have. Two final things. First is recognition. As you know, the Higgins has really been involved deeply for a long time with Project 351. They do an incredible job. This year we have two very, very deserving ambassadors. Noah Crocker and Connie Patrielli have been named the 351 student ambassadors for this year. They come from great families. They've done amazing work here at the Higgins, and we want to give them a little bit of recognition. They're going to do some great work, and eventually we'll have them come and present some of the service learning projects that they're doing, and they're really making Peabody proud and the Higgins proud as well. The final item on my agenda is a $500 donation to the Carroll Elementary School from Bernie Trumpler, who's the territory sales manager, and they're global partners in partnership with ExxonMobil Educational Alliance Program. So at this time, I know that Mrs. Smith has sent a letter of gratitude, but we'd like to make a motion to accept the donation with gratitude and then send Mr. Trumpler a letter of gratitude on behalf of the school committee. So if somebody would like to make that motion.
Motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent.
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Amico. Unanimous vote for approval. Thank you.
All right, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Doc, you gave us a lot tonight.
Yes, you did.
It's good to, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I know it was a collaborative effort with you and your staff and the administrators in the district, so thank you, Dr. Lord, as well. And if you could take that back to central administration for me, I'd appreciate that. It's good to see that we're moving forward. You know, there are certain days in this school year in particular where it seems like things are standing still, and that's clearly not the case. So it's really good to show the public that there are good things happening, there are great things happening here in Peabody in our school system. They'll continue to happen regardless of the adversity that our students and staff face, so it's good to see. I also wanted to quickly transition into the budget, and I'm happy to see that our Chapter 70 money looks like it's going to increase, and there's more student spending on the horizon. I just wanted to caution the public that's watching that, even though those numbers look promising, that's still below, those percentage increases are below our budgetary obligations that go up year after year, like steps and lanes and health insurance costs and things like that. So I just wanted to temper public expectations. We'll get into the budget, as you said, in about a month and a half or so, and that's always an exciting time. Challenging time, most recently, but we'll get into all that. I just wanted to thank you again for the presentation. I wanted to congratulate Noah and Connie. They have huge shoes to fill. I'm confident, I know them both, I'm confident that each of them will be able to be successful. 351 ambassadors. It's a great program. I believe it was started by Governor Patrick many years ago. We've had a history of fantastic ambassadors participating in the program, so I expect them to do great things as well. So thanks again.
Very well said, Mr. Hockman. Thank you. Mr. Amico?
Great, thank you through the chair, Dr. Vidal. Thank you so much for your district goals. Not only are we surviving, but we're thriving, and that's important. And these kids are getting a great education. We're the only district our size that's been doing this in September. So again, kudos to our teachers, our staff, our students, our parents, our central office team, and everyone in between that's really providing a great education for our kids. The other thing on the budget, appreciate the budget update. I hope there are grants. I hope there's more funding, because two things that have been consistent since this pandemic is our students are in need, both emotionally and many of them are in need with food insecurities. So I would hope that there's extra monies in there in the budget for the hiring of extra counselors, and to set up some kind of a plan where food will not be an insecurity for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Thank you for that report.
Public participation.
Yep, we'll go to public participation. Anyone looking to weigh in today and speak?
Okay, so we have a number of attendees. If anyone would like to speak, if they could raise their hand. Seeing none, I'll continue to monitor.
Okay, thank you. There are no written communications today, so we'll go to subcommittee reports. And let's see. Well, let's just stay with what we've had. I know that we've made some new assignments, but let's go with Education Subcommittee. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, I know we do have some new assignments coming out as we do every year. I just wanted to say thank you to the subcommittee. I've had the pleasure of chairing the Education Subcommittee, I think, for the last 4 years. We're going to have some changes in leadership there, and it's in good hands with Joe Amico. So just wanted to wish Joe well leading the Education Subcommittee in the future, and thank everybody for the help that they provided me in leading the subcommittee in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman, and outstanding job as always with your committee assignments. Just shifting things up a little bit, giving everybody an opportunity to kind of look at some new committees. So, but I feel great about this whole group as a whole. It's been terrific. So thank you for that. Finance, Mr. Olympio, can you give the report today?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to read into the record a letter from the Peabody Federation of Teachers addressed to Dr. Vidala and the school committee. And then there's also a letter addressed to Dr. Vidala and the school committee members from special education teachers and staff. So the first letter is, again, from the Peabody Federation of Teachers, dated February 5th, 2021. Dear Dr. Vidala, this letter is in response to the proposal that the BFT bargaining team received from you in writing on January 29th, 2021. While we all remain committed to providing our students with the best education possible throughout the ongoing pandemic, we feel as though your proposal would not be the right decision for our members and the students at the current time. With high levels of COVID-19 community spread present in Peabody, we urge continued caution in any ramp up of in-person learning. Educators across the district have done our jobs to the best of our abilities all year. Despite being put in vulnerable positions related to our health and safety, asking a subset of educators to take on additional risk, especially if they don't feel as though it is the most educationally sound decision, would be unfair. The proposal was initially presented by the school committee's bargaining team as having been a letter from special educators February 5th, 2021 driven, and supported by the rank and file special educators. The PFT's response was formed by those same educators serving our most vulnerable students. And it referenced the letter that I'll read in a minute. Please see the attached letter explaining the rationale for the decision, and feel free to share with the rest of the school committee. We are eager to continue to work with you and to make the best out of this school year and setting our students up for success moving forward. Sincerely, Peabody Federation of Teachers, the bargaining team. So this is the letter from the special educators to Dr. Videla and the school committee members. We are writing to you on behalf of the Peabody educators who serve the most vulnerable students in our district. The school committee has recently made a proposal to our union, the Peabody Federation of Teachers, which would dictate that many of our students take part in in-person learning 5 days each week moving forward, rather than the 4 days each week that is currently reality. While this proposal was surely made with the best intentions, and we all deeply desire to return to more normal version of school, we collectively feel as though it would not be in the best decision for our students or colleagues at this time. Throughout the school year, Peabody Public Schools, like other districts throughout the state, have taken countless steps to make our schools as safe as possible. Despite best efforts, we remain in the midst of unprecedented pandemic. Every additional day that students and staff attend in-person learning is another day when we are all at risk of COVID transmission, and just as importantly, entering into quarantine protocols. The disruption caused by quarantine is felt particularly hard by our most vulnerable students and must be minimized. Wednesdays without students in the buildings allow our custodial staff the space necessary to perform the level of cleaning required to keep our school community safe throughout the rest of the week. In addition to our safety concerns, we believe that the move to 5 days of in-person learning would not be the most educationally sound decision for our students. The reason why the additional day of in-person learning could negatively impact our students vary between schools and programs, but include many others. Our students have settled, so here are the reasons. Our students have settled into their current routine, and further disruptions at current time would be detrimental. Okay, number two, educators need the currently formatted Wednesdays to prepare lessons for all of the students, meet with and discuss students and lessons with paraprofessionals, and meet with other teachers and service providers to discuss students. Next point, having students in school on Wednesday will not help with their social skills. It will make them feel different because they are the only ones in school. Next point, remote learning offers a parent a glimpse into their child's learning and chance to play an active role to support their learning at home in order to reinforce skills. Even in co-taught classrooms, teaching remote and in-person cohorts simultaneously will negatively impact the level of teaching we are able to give our students. Next point. Social distancing and COVID protocols guidelines are extremely difficult for our students to follow, and having the time to learn remotely at home gives the students opportunity to move more freely. It also allows them to see their peers and teachers without masks. Because of the reasons above and many others, we ask you to reconsider plans to alter the learning model for our students at this time. At the same time, we ask you to reconsider the district's current practice of requiring educators to report to the work site on remote Wednesdays. The school committee's recent proposal puts us as special educators in an extremely difficult position. Our colleagues across the district are professionals, and their ability to work from a safe, productive work space on remote days should not be dependent on special educators acquiescing to a decision that we do not believe is in the best interest of the students. Sincerely, and it's signed by staff and paraprofessionals throughout the district. And I'll yield for the moment.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Limpio. Any comments? Okay. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, through the mayor, to Mr. Olympio. Thank you for reading those letters that were received by us and Dr. Vidala into our record. 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting where we talked about historical practice of bargaining in confidence, in confidentiality, that appears to have gone by the wayside. And now it appears as if there's a subsection of teachers and staff that are bargaining outside of the scope of the bargaining team that the Peabody Education, or Peabody Federation of Teachers has delegated to bargain with us. It's difficult for me. This is a difficult manner in which to do this, as most, if not all of the, I know most of the people that signed on to the special education educators letter, respect all of them. They have a tremendously difficult job, and all do it very, very well with a tremendous amount of class and dignity, and they raise up the most vulnerable students in our district. They do it on a day-to-day basis. At the same time, we can't bargain with each and every member of a unit that has elected officers to do this for them. I hope that we are not going to see communications like this in the future. I would prefer if we, as a school committee and an administration, direct our thoughts, ideas, and aspirations in regard to whether it be a memorandum of understanding or a bargaining agreement through our team that we designate to negotiate these contracts and these arrangements. I would hope that the teachers, paraprofessionals, and all other members of bargaining units that work for the Peabody Public School System would refrain from these types of communications and direct their efforts through their leadership as well. I'm going to stop here at this point in hopes that we're not going to see any more communications like this. However, if we do continue to see communications like this, I will move forward with some thoughts and ideas that I intend to direct towards our bargaining team. I would move forward with those publicly, and I don't want to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through the chair. And I agree with Mr. Hockman. I'm not sure if this letter directed to Dr. Vidal and school committee members was vetted through union leadership. As a parent, as a school committee member, and as a teacher, I really have issues with the reasons for not, for not coming back 5 days a week in those subgroups. If someone wrote they have safety concerns for themselves and family, I could see that. But to write down and talk about special ed students and disrupting their routines, special ed students in my 20 years of education do best when they are in school full-time. I understand a little bit about preparing lessons. I have to do it. It's not easy. Taking a full day to do it outside or inside of school, I just don't understand the whole Wednesday prepping for lessons argument. I'm reading the third one here. I totally disagree. I think special ed students, their social skills are gained in school, and then to say that parents would get a glimpse of their child's learning style by keeping them at home on that 5th day, I disagree with that. I think parents know their kids, especially special ed kids, and especially those who have some severe behavior issues or learning disabilities. Those parents know their kids very, very well. And those are the parents that for the most part call us and have been grieving during this time more than anyone because of not being able to have their kids full-time. We've heard one of our own members here saying that Wednesdays is the worst day in his house. And I just, as Mr. Hockman said, I really don't want to see any of this unless it comes from union membership. I've been on both sides. I've been in negotiations as a teacher. I've been in negotiations as a school committee member. And there's a reason why you have leaderships. And I was also very upset and to see this. I just don't think there's any consistency here if we're hearing from different groups. This is a great committee here that's been pro-teacher for many years, and we're willing to sit down, whether it's privately or publicly, and discuss anything on the table. And where we can help as much as we can, and we've proven that over the years. So I would just hope in the future, if the union would like to speak to us in general, speak from the leadership. I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Okay, anybody else like Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. At our last meeting, my understanding was that, for various reasons, that the relationship between the school committee and the union would be that there would be negotiations in public. If I'm mistaken by that, I apologize, but that's what I thought at the last meeting. So when I saw these two letters, one like a letter of introduction from the bargaining team of the unit, and then from the union, I'm sorry, and then the accompanying letter that they directed to us, I just thought this was part of that process. Could I request that we clarify how, going forward, there will be negotiations handled in public? If this process is out of the realm of that intention, then we need to clarify it now before we go any further, just so that we know what's going to be coming before us and how it's going to come before us. Will it come to the full school committee, or would it still go to our negotiation subcommittee and negotiations would be in public? I really don't understand the steps, and I think we need to clarify them, if that's possible. Thank you.
We asked Don. Maybe we schedule a meeting with them.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Yeah, on that point, Mr. Hockman.
On that point, thank you, Ms. Dunn. That's a terrific thought and something that we should get some clarity on, because we need to know whether or not we're going to acknowledge the leadership of the union or whether we're bargaining with each member. Because while I understand your thought on this, that the union leadership is presenting this letter from the special educators to us, it's signed by a significant amount of staff members. If we're going to negotiate and bargain with staff members, I'd like to know that so that we don't have to acknowledge the leadership of the union, and we can just bargain freely with any member and then see how that goes. I don't think it's going to go terribly well. I think it's going to be a downward spiral, and it's going to turn into chaos. But if we're going to continue to receive communications from specific members, and that's who's bargaining with us, because their letter, the special educator's letter, is clearly an effort to bargain with us, then we need to know that so that we can bargain directly with them, which I think violates some terms of our agreement currently. So I don't want to explicitly violate any terms of our agreement, particularly when it comes to representation. So if Dr. Vidal, if you can find that out while you're talking to Attorney Khan and leadership at the teachers union, I'd appreciate that as well.
And if I may, I think that this is a very unique circumstance, and I think that with this case, we identified a very small subset of students that we wanted to bring back, and I'm hopeful that this is a one-off that was a response because we identified a small number of classrooms, that is what the intention was, and that's not going to be how we do business moving forward. I think it was a backup that was in response to how we identified the people. So I think that we can work together. We have had, as I've said, I speak with the union president every day. We have a great relationship. We don't always agree, but we have an extremely positive and professional relationship moving forward. And I think that we can come to an understanding about how to move forward in a productive way, because I think some of these comments in the public forum does not help our negotiations moving forward on either side. We had a nice conversation today about how union should be united, and we want to work together, because if we have one common goal and we're working towards the same common goal, then it's easier to find that common ground. And I think that philosophically we're a lot closer than some of this has happened, and we just need to get around the bargaining table and reset some ground rules and move forward professionally.
Thank you, and just to add to that, Dr. Vidal, that's how I did read the letter that way, that was back up to their letter, the Peabody Federation of Teachers. I do understand the points that were made, but I did look at it as this is backup. I think we just need to, again, it comes down to communication. I think we just need to sit down. I think we all want the very same thing. I do feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel here in terms of the vaccination process happening. We were able to vaccinate more people today, and we have more clinics scheduled for tomorrow and Thursday. I know the operation's not going as fast as all of us want. I've been certainly frustrated and have spoken about that openly at the city council meeting and to the newspaper. But it is starting to happen, and I think all of us have the same goal here, and I think it just comes down to a matter of communication, and we just need to sit down, maybe as leadership on both sides, and kind of carve out exactly what we're looking to do here and to make this work. Because this, to me, it just seems strange. We can't have, we can't have letters going back and forth, us to them, them to us. I just think it has to be communication, sit down, talk things through, and I'm pretty sure we can come up with something that's going to work both for our teachers, our administrators, and most importantly, our students. And I know that can happen. There's good people all around. So, but that's kind of how I read it, and I think, again, there's been such communication problems because of COVID, and it's made things so distant and so disconnected, and we just can't let that happen. I think we got to come together again and work through these issues. So, and again, I think there's good people all around to make that happen. I know there were a couple of other people that wanted to make comments. Mr. Olympio, did you want to make comments?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in regards to what Mr. Hockman said a few minutes ago, I'd like to refrain from some of my feelings just because of, I like to keep things professional and keep things on course, but at the best, I read the reasons, and I just want to address something, and maybe there is a communication issue, but 3 or 4 are, other than preparing for their lessons, these bullet points relating to students, at best there must be a huge disconnect or misunderstanding, because I speak from a parent, being a parent, and from what I hear from parents calling me almost on a daily basis, there's a disconnect with these reasons, a huge disconnect. So hopefully we can work towards finding a common ground and a common understanding. I do believe everybody is well-intentioned, and I'm always a glass half full person, so I think we can work this out, but I do want to address that parents reading, seeing this in a packet, and they see the 3 or 4 reasons, there's a disconnect there. There's a misunderstanding. That is not how most special education parents feel, and I just want to make that clear, and going forward, hopefully we can bridge those gaps. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Thank you.
And
Mr. Amico?
Sure, through the chair, the only thing that I wanted to say, and thank you, Mr. Olympio, is, and through the chair, is, we have 6 or 7 members here on the school committee, and I would just ask that, the hundreds of teachers that we have here in Peabody just reach out to their leadership group, voice their concerns, voice their opinions, show their support, and have that leadership group come to us and sit down like we have in previous years. I've been part of 2 negotiations here, and I can assure you that those negotiations went well. We sat together. It's you know, in politics, it's a lot about give and take, it's a lot about compromise, and the same thing goes here. We're in this incredible time right now where a lot of things don't make sense, but if we can sit down and discuss and get negotiations going as soon as possible, I think this will help it. But we really do need two leadership groups sitting down and trying to do the best for our kids. And if we can do the best for our kids, it starts with our teachers. And we want the best for our teachers and staff because they're the first line of defense for our kids. So again, if we can just get two leadership groups together, one on the school committee side and one on the teacher's side, I think we can do great things for the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you. No, I'm just going to piggyback on what my colleagues are saying. On the point of just clarifying our communication, I think we can do that. You know, as you said, Mr. Amico, actually all of you have said, you know, it's better to have a team of people negotiating on behalf of the larger body rather than the larger body negotiating on behalf of themselves right now. I think it's a difficult time. You know, obviously communication is strained because we can't be together. It makes things a little bit more difficult. I do believe we can get through this. In regard to the letter, I'm not going to speak too much on it, but I have to tell you, I hear exactly what Mr. Olympio, Mr. Hockman, what we all hear, how difficult it is for our families right now under this circumstance. And, you know, as I said 2 weeks ago now, I do think it's time we start moving the ball forward a little bit here. I think the CDC is coming out with more guidelines tomorrow, so we might have a better sense of, you know, some protocols the federal government looks at with how we should operate in-person learning. But coming back on Wednesdays, you know, the people I talk to, you know, even the ones that are doing relatively okay with remote learning do say we'd rather be in than not in at all. You know, so I am hearing that, and I hope we can get there. I know this is a process that has, you know, so many different factors for people, safety, what have you. You know, I have no doubt that the staff who wrote that letter does have the best interests of our students at heart, but we do need to strike a balance here and try to move a little bit, I believe, going forward. So, you know, I look forward to organizing this and you know, getting our communication back on track.
Thank you, Mr. Arnottis. Okay. All right. Anything else to report, Mr. Olympio, on finance?
That is it.
Okay, thank you. School safety, Mr. Olympio?
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Athletics and wellness, Mr. Hockman?
I just wanted to report that February 22 will start Fall 2 sports. We're very, very excited about that. And I wanted to give some recognition to our football team, their parents, their coaches, the coaching staff over there, and a bunch of other people that helped clear the football field from snow. They might be doing it again and maybe again, but I wanted to recognize them, show their dedication to their craft and their sport, and thank them for doing that work and wish them well all Fall 2 sports on their season.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hockman. I'm going to probably steal Dr. Vidala's thunder, but that certainly has been a topic that we've had a great deal of discussion about. There was a number of students and even parents, as you said, Mr. Hockman, helping shovel the high school field. And, you know, I thought at first that it was a training by the coach to get the kids out there. But I thought it was terrific. But really, that's on us. We as a city have to do that. We have to have that cleared before the 22nd, and we will. We've already contracted with a company to come in and assist us. Our Department of Public Works is ready to do that. So it was greatly appreciated that our students are so eager and so excited to start football, and the parents were so supportive and things. But really, that's on us. And Dr. Vidal and I will make sure that gets done. We got some storms coming. Looks like we got another one coming this weekend. So we'll have our challenges certainly, but rest assured, our students, our football players, our cheerleaders, their parents, our whole sports community, we'll make sure that we have the field ready to go, and we've already initiated that. And I wanted to thank Mr. Bua for his assistance. He's been very helpful. So it was great to see the kids. I saw some great pictures that some of my close friends sent me, but that's our work. We'll get that done for everybody. So, Mr. Amico?
Sure. Through the chair, Mr. Hockman, we spoke briefly about that Impact Melanoma Initiative. If I could just explain that quickly and decide where we want to put it, either in health and wellness or in education. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Miko.
So speaking of Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, one of our graduates, Gary Mandisi, Dr. Gary Mandisi. He's a dermatologist. He's partnered up, he has an office here in Peabody. He's partnered up with the Impact Melanoma Group, with Amy Mason, who runs that group. And there's a virtual online event on March 8th at 7 o'clock. It's called the Skinny on Skin, and it's a training program for hairstylists, salon owners, or barbers, or anyone who works with skin and clients. And in talking to this group, I will be referring them to Mr. Hockman, Dr. Vidala, and possibly Maria Ferry to see if they could work with our cosmetology and medical assistance students. And it's a great program, and it's a virtual event, and hopefully we can have a partnership. I'll go ahead and forward it to you, but it just came in, so I just wanted to announce that. And the online event is March 8th at 7 p.m. And it's maybe we can put it on the website. I'll forward you that information. But it's great because we have a lot of barbers and salon owners in the city, and it's a great way for them as professionals to check the skin of their clients to see if they may have some issues, and possibly refer them to dermatologists if they see that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you. I'm really glad you brought that forward, because that is such an important aspect for any of those trades. And it would be wonderful for our students to learn about that, and for members of the community. Years ago, there is a family in Peabody who lost their son to melanoma. And they led an incredible effort for melanoma awareness, and they were concentrating at the high school. And I believe that their organization went national, and I'm wondering if they are connected with this. In a way, it's bringing it back home, because they were so good to Peabody Veterans Memorial High School and to the city of Peabody, the area around us, just trying to make people aware of the dangers of melanoma. And they did a lot of incredible work when they started that program. And as I said, I think it went national.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. All right. Next, Quality and Standards. Mrs. Dunn, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Quality and Standards Subcommittee has met twice. We met last week on the 2nd, and then we met again this evening prior to this school committee meeting. The two things that we really worked specifically on to get ready for this evening, we have in our packet a policy labeled File FFB, and it is with memorials. And after going through this, we have one change we'd like to make and bring forward to you tonight, but we would like to have this for first reading. In the second paragraph, what we decided is to take out the very last sentence in the second paragraph, and then that second to the last sentence will now read, the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School memorials are only allowed for veterans or specific military actions. We took out the reference to another policy and thought that this was a cleaner way to have that read. We also took out the parentheses around that last paragraph. We're going to leave that procedure in this policy for now. It does follow the same process that we have in other policies in our book. So that's why we wanted to keep that in. So the Quality and Standards Subcommittee recommends that the full committee approve File FFB memorials for first reading. So moved.
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion made by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Olympio. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Dunn, and to the members, through the mayor, the members of the Quality and Standards Subcommittee. I'm wondering, Ms. Dunn, if you might be able to flesh this out a little bit for me or for us. And we can go through it, you know, as a...
Sure, no, I can explain how we came with this. We looked at the MASC standard policy about memorials. That policy said that there should be no memorials in schools. And the subcommittee felt that it was appropriate to have memorials in schools, but that they needed to be guided and appropriate for the building. And we also wanted to make sure that people know that any memorials currently in the schools that conform with this policy will stay. So we used that kernel of a policy to prepare this. And that's where we got very specific in the second paragraph, where we said the Peabody School Committee, however, understands there are times when a person or event is closely connected to a special school, to a specific school, and the school community has a strong desire to honor that person or event by virtue of a permanent memorial in the school building or on school grounds. And one of the examples that you can think of is a lot of our elementary schools have a garden named for someone, and those gardens are maintained by the students and the families at the school. So we wanted to be able to keep that and let people be able to have that ability, if they so desired, to honor someone at a school. And then we did make that distinction about the high school. The high school is different. The understanding for all of these years, and when the high school was originally named, that was one of the conditions that the veterans at the time requested, that things at the high school be named for veterans or specific events. So we're following through with that just to keep that. That was everyone's understanding. There's years of practice on that, and we wanted to maintain that. And then, again, that third paragraph, it's saying that a suggestion of a memorial be brought to the principal and the school council, that the specific details need to be clear and concise. The information is then presented to the superintendent, and then the superintendent will bring the request to quality and standards for initial discussion, and if that memorial meets with all of the policies that we have, then that would go to the full school committee for a vote. And that actually is the process that has been used in the past for anything at the high school. So that was how we worked on this, trying to be able to give people that ability to honor someone who was important to their school, but to put some parameters around it. We used just the general definition of a memorial, and that's right out of the dictionary. And we put that right in there, so it's a very, very clear, very concise and specific definition of a memorial. So that was how we came up with the policy, and then again, tonight we looked at it and it was confusing, going from one policy to another about the high school, and we're hoping that that language clarifies it and just keeps it really targeted on the whole issue of memorials at all the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Ms. Dunn, thank you. So I'm really just trying to get my hands around this. This issue came up most recently with the police memorial at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And as I read this policy, the police memorial at the high school would not be permitted to exist under this policy. Is that? No.
I'm not going to say that it wouldn't be permitted to exist. No, it would not be considered a memorial
Okay.
under this definition.
Yeah.
Because the next policy we
Yeah.
have,
Covers.
the biggest issue on the determination of what to do, what was, what came up to us with the Wall of Honor, was what exactly was it? So we've narrowed it down to, it's called, people were calling it a memorial, but under the simple definition from a dictionary, it was not necessarily what we were looking at as a memorial, or what the standard boilerplate policy thought of a
Yeah,
memorial.
I don't disagree with that, so
Yeah.
that's fine.
So that's why it's not, this one is specific for, like and I don't want to use the word concrete, because we were very careful about that, because it conjures memories of, or thoughts of, a gravestone as a memorial. What we were talking about is, as far as concrete, is a significant item that is static, that is an object that is static, or like as I said, a garden, a plaque, or a bench. We have those throughout the schools, and we didn't want those to be taken out either, because they meant something important to people who were in that school community. But in order to address the whole issue around the Wall of Honor, we needed to figure out what that was. And it really fell more into what the next policy, and I will talk about the next one, a display. It is actually a changing display by its nature. It's updated every year, it changes every year. And this was to give guidance on how to deal with the work, artwork or literary work, all the other types of things that are on display in the school. And honestly, both of these have been driven by that entire situation. And going forward, we hope that these policies will help in such a situation. But the situation still remains, and the Quality and Standards Subcommittee knows that our next step is to help to reach a resolution with that entire issue at the high school. And we'll be working with Dr. Vidala and Mr. Magno and trying to take care of that. But we needed to get the policies done first, so that people know going forward what we would like to see in the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and again, thank you, Ms. Dunn. I'll leave the next policy or display and postings to the conversation after we finish this one, because I don't know that I read it the same way. But with regard to the memorials policy, FFB, would you be amenable to, in the last paragraph, I think it's the last sentence, it says, if the Quality and Standards Subcommittee deems the proposed memorial to be appropriate and in conformance with other policies. I think when you initially described this, you described it as Quality and Standards vetting the memorial as being in conformance with other policies. I don't know what it means to be appropriate. I mean, in other words, I don't understand why the school committee, as in general, would cede that decision-making to the Subcommittee of Quality and Standards. Because it then goes on to say, then you would bring it to a majority vote, look for a majority vote from the school committee, after the Quality and Standards Subcommittee deems the proposed memorial to be appropriate and in conformance with all other policies. So the way I read that is, if the subcommittee deems the memorial to be inappropriate, and there's 3 members generally in that subcommittee, the whole school committee as a body would never see that proposal. And maybe I'm reading that wrong, but that's the way the plain language seems to read to me. So I don't take issue with the Quality and Standards Subcommittee reviewing the proposal to provide an opinion to the school committee in regard to conformity with other policies. But appropriateness, I think, is something that we each have been elected to make a decision about.
I'll be honest, I think that it was prepared and read appropriate and in conformance, appropriate under our bylaw, appropriate under our policies. That was the intention of it.
Yeah, it's not.
Well,
I know you.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
if we could remove,
Yep, we can
Yeah.
take the word right out.
yeah.
if the other members so desire.
So we would be taking out
The word appropriate.
to be appropriate, for promote, so it would be subcommittee, if the Quality and Standards Subcommittee deems the proposed memorial to be in conformance with all other policies. So we'd be just taking out appropriate and,
Right. Yeah. Because that would be the purpose of the subcommittee reviewing it anyway, just to make sure that it is complying with policies.
Right.
And then it would come to the full board.
but I guess the question, so it, to Mr. Huckman's question, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but so if it was voted though, well, actually, I'll turn over, you're the one that, yeah.
No, that's the point, Mr. Mayor, is if the subcommittee votes that it's not in conformity with other policies, other subcommittees, the practice would be that it would be reported out negatively. It would be reported out that there was not the majority of the subcommittee deemed whatever it is was discussed in subcommittee not to be approved by the school committee, but the school committee would still have the ability
Right.
to debate, to talk, and to vote. That's not the way this reads. This says that this memorial will only be brought to the school committee if the subcommittee of quality and standards, even taking out the appropriateness, deems that the proposed memorial is in conformity with all other policies. So in other words, the subcommittee can say by unanimous vote that the proposed memorial doesn't conform with the all other policies of the Peabody School Committee and report it out negatively, but it still gives us the opportunity to talk about it, vote on it, and perhaps even pass it. There may be three of us and a chair that disagree with the subcommittee and be able to pass it, but the way this reads, the way I read it, is that doesn't come out of subcommittee. And I don't think that that's,
No, it wasn't the intent.
yeah,
That's not the intention.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
intention is to bring it forward,
Yeah, but
Oh.
I get,
bring it forward for,
so then I would remove the whole last sentence.
I don't think you need to remove the whole sentence.
And I'm happy to work offline with this. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this language meets the intent of what was discussed, so,
I know exactly what you're.
yeah, I mean, I think these I mean,
We're all
I
on the
understand.
same page.
Right,
We just
right,
gotta
that's what I'm
find the
saying. I
right
don't
way.
want to.
Could Ms. Dunn, could I
And
ask?
How about this? For initial discussion. Initial discussion. And then the proposed memorial shall be brought to the committee of the whole for discussion and a vote. So it would say, this information will then be presented to the superintendent, who shall then bring this request to the Quality and Standards Subcommittee for initial discussion. And then the proposed memorial shall be brought to the committee of the whole for discussion and vote.
Could I ask, Ms. Dunn, could I ask you to have one more meeting on this to kind of work through
Sure.
that? Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in a kind of an agreement of what we want. I just think it's gonna be hard to kind of, to do it on the fly right now.
Yeah, no,
Even though I
that's
think what you said is pretty good. But I would, if we could kind of maybe just have one more meeting, work out that language, and then, maybe we could do it right before the next
Actually,
school committee.
that's the plan, to
Okay.
handle some others, so we can put it back on
Can we
that.
put it back on it? Because I think it's a fix, but it's just hard to kind of throw words back and forth right now. But I think what you said is pretty close to what we're looking at.
Right, and the intention was that at the subcommittee level, that the research would be done to make sure that it does
Yeah,
conform
that
with
makes
other
sense.
policies, and then be reported out. So we'll clarify that.
Yeah.
and
Yep,
bring it
that'd be
forward.
great.
Okay. All right, so we'll hold that one. The next policy, honestly, this one is, as you can see, it's a work in progress. It is not ready for a first reading, but we wanted to let you know what we were working on because of the fact that the issue brought forward by the Wall of Honor involved our discussion about a memorial versus a display. This piece is about classroom and school displays and postings. And we've actually requested that Dr. Vidala circulate that to get some input on the teachers and the principals, because they are the ultimate authorities in their building as far as the displays that are utilized by teachers for teaching materials. So this kind of codifies what we thought went on, at the school level. But we are just waiting for some feedback. And then, as you can see at the bottom, those are just notes saying, we need to cross-reference this and put that with this when it's ready to become a policy. But again, just to show people that we're working on those two in tandem, because they are at the moment related. And Dr. Vidala had a great suggestion, and the subcommittee agreed with this. We would like to post these on the website and just have those up there so that other people can read them and have that kind of transparency prior to actually implementing them as policy. The thought was to have it go up between, a first reading and a second reading. So we can hang on until we get the other policy ready for a first reading, or these could both go up right now. It's okay. The one thing I do want to caution people about is we're not going to do policy by taking polls. This school committee has the responsibility of setting policy. We've always been open to anyone writing to us, calling us, letting us know what they think of policies and how it might impact them, their family, the teachers, whatever. But by putting them up there, we're going to let people see them. They could see them normally in our agendas. But because of the way that we don't have the agendas available, this would be another way to let people see this. So we need to work it through with the IT department to see how to put that up. And maybe we have to have a discussion about putting up the agendas prior to the meetings, having them highlighted. I don't know. But that's our thought going forward, just to be able to have people looking at the policy prior to implementation.
Well, thank you for bringing this forward, Ms. Dunn. Yeah, I appreciate the work in progress. This is a great report, and this definitely gives us what we need to start really honing in on what we want. So can let's put these on for the 23rd prior to our regular meeting, and maybe we can try to have a full committee attendance on that day. So because I think we're getting close.
Right, and we would be bringing it forward at that time anyway.
Yep.
And we also know that the whole issue, the whole situation, that needs to be resolved, but separate from the policies.
I got you.
The policies are created in a dry and dusty environment.
I understand. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn.
Now, we also have started reviewing our bylaws, and we do have some policies that we're working on, and honestly, we worked on them tonight. I will bring them forward at our next meeting, and the thought is we will go through, we will find the policies that we recommend changes to and have those brought forward. But ultimately, we will have the entire Section B, which is also our bylaws. We would like to have that finally approved in one complete product. So some of the policies are fine. They're boilerplate. They don't need to be changed. Others need to be updated. And the ones that need to be updated, we would bring to the school committee for specific discussion. but at the very end, we would end up hopefully being able to approve our entire bylaw section.
Good.
Okay, so it's an ongoing project. We've got all kinds of policies to come forward to you with, and we'll just keep working on those and getting them up. And if anybody has any specific policies that they think need to be updated, please just send me an email. I do know we're looking at updating BDE, BDB, BED, BEDB. I'm thinking of the Three Stooges. I'm ready to start singing here. BEDB, BEDBA, BEDH, BEDD, BCBGB, and BID.
Those are my favorites.
MOUSC.
When did Lockyer Gravitz take over your body?
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn, that was great. Thank you, thank you. That, I know a lot of work's going on in that committee, I'm very appreciative of that. Okay, Parent and Student Advisory Boards, Mrs. Dunn?
Oh my gosh, I don't even think I can talk now. We're trying to reschedule the Parent Advisory Board meeting. We had canceled it due to the snowstorm the other day when school was put on remote. Our goal is to have Dr. Vidala as the speaker, the honored speaker. But in the interest of scheduling, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to try to schedule a meeting this month just for the Parent Advisory Board members because they've got a couple of issues that need to be spoken about. And we're going to schedule with Dr. Vidala in March, giving him some time and us some time to get that notice out to the parents, just because February is really totally booked. So.
Okay.
So we'll be looking forward to hearing from Dr. Vidala and hopefully have just a general meeting prior to the end of February.
Honored speaker, Dr. Vidala.
Yes, honored speaker.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Building and Grounds, Mr. Amico?
Nothing to report other than I'll be stepping down from the chair, and Mr. Hockman will be taking over in Building and Grounds, so thank you, Mr. Hockman. And I'll be moving over to Education to chair that, so it's sort of like a trade. And I think in the trade, I'm also getting a chicken parm dinner from Petrillo's, and you're getting some ice cream from Treadwell, so no.
Oh, all right.
So honored to be chairing the Education Subcommittee, and Mr. Hoffman, thank you, and you'll do a great job of Building and Grounds, so.
That made me very hungry, Mr. Amico.
I know.
Yes, I think it is too late. Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio?
Yes, I would love to schedule something for March because February is all booked up, especially with the school vacation, and I would like to have Dr. Vidal and Ms. Chioda there present. I'll have maybe coffee and donuts.
We'll get chicken
You're getting
parm at
booked
the
up
PAB
fast.
meeting. There we go.
Tiramisu?
Yeah, exactly.
Ziggy and Sons?
Ziggy.
Be looking forward to when we can all meet in person. So, but anyways, yeah, I'm looking at March.
Thank you. City Council and Legislative Delegation, Mr. Arnottis?
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Redistricting, Mr. Huckman?
Yes, thank you. We have a meeting coming up February 22.
Yep.
Yep. The first Monday back from break, I believe.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. New business, we did have the new committee assignments. They're very similar to what we have been working off of. There were some changes, and I just want to thank everybody. Your willingness, your eagerness to serve on these committees, made my job a little easier trying to accommodate everyone, but it was refreshing because I don't think that happens all the time. Everybody was ready to tackle any committee, and I really appreciated that. So those are the committee assignments for this coming year, and again, they're very similar to the past year. I did make some slight changes. And our next meeting is the 23rd February. Prior to that, we'll have Quality and Standards on the 23rd. And then, as Mr. Hockman said, we have the 22nd is the Redistricting Committee. That's on the upcoming schedule. Before we break, Mr. Arnottis, did you have a comment? Oh, yes, Mr. Arnottis, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I've talked to some of you already. Mr. Hockman, I didn't get a chance to chat with you before we came in. I know we're getting into election season right now. I wanted to announce I'll not be seeking re-election in November. I want to say it was a difficult decision, certainly was, after 4 years serving with such incredible people. You are an incredible group of dedicated, hardworking people who love this community, and it has truly been an honor to serve with you over these past few years. But for me, personally, I'm proud of the work that we have done here together. I'm just ready to go on to the next adventure, as they say. I'm looking at some master's programs and things of that nature. As you know, I'm a little bit younger than the average person who probably serves on a school committee, so I have time to take that opportunity right now. And another 4-year commitment is a lot to take on, and would potentially prevent me from being able to do that. So I wanted to keep those options open. I do hope that the person who ultimately takes this has the same passion as all of you that we have had, and the commitment to our students here. I was laughing with someone. I was talking to them about this earlier, and I think about Mr. Mayor, I started with you not too long ago when I was in college at your office.
Right.
And then we went through a few election cycles. The zoning board, I did a stint there. I've been up with Rep. Walsh at the State House for about 5 years, and now I've had the pleasure of doing 4 years with this group, for the school system that helped me get there. And it's really, I hope people understand that, young people who want to be involved in their local community and local government, you have to encourage that. And I've been so fortunate to have so many people encourage me along the way. So, I'm looking forward to the next adventure, and you can be sure if there's an opportunity to come back and contribute to this community in some way down the line, I'll be happy to do that and wouldn't think twice about it. But for now, that's my plan, and I'm just so grateful for this city, for the people here, and for all of you. I truly consider myself lucky, and it's been a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Arnottis. That was very well said, and I think all of us have extremely high praise for what you've been able to bring to this committee and the type of person you are. You are completely dedicated to the city, care deeply for our students, teachers, the future of our city. I've enjoyed working with you, and I know that will continue because you're going to be helping in other capacities. I already got plenty of ideas of things you can be helping us with after school committee.
Know where you live.
But really, you have meant a great deal to this committee. You bring a unique perspective, and you always do it with such class and dignity. I have great respect for you. I think all of us can say that, and some people may want to say that. But I did want to speak, and I've always enjoyed working with you, and I know that your future looks extremely bright, as I said to you earlier. And you're just a good person, and you've provided a lot to us. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Miko.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair, Andrew, Mr. Arnottis, I'm going to call you Andrew. I shared this with you earlier, and I want to share it with the public. 6 years ago, when you ran for the first time and you finished 4th, it was hard for you to not be on, but the best part of that night for you and for me was about 8 o'clock. Right after 8 o'clock, you called me to congratulate me, and I just had so much respect for you. I already had, anyways, the fact that you weren't on the winning side, but yet you made the phone call to say, congratulations, and that meant a lot to me, and I knew the type of person that you were, and just watching you grow, because you were a kid when you came on, and to watch you grow. And I hear a lot of that in Peabody. People are impressed by you, and like the mayor said, you have an incredible future ahead of you. You're young, and I think all of us wish we were way back there, and all the mistakes that we've made over the years and all the challenges. But you have an opportunity to do great things, and you'll always be a friend, and you'll always be part of us. So congratulations, buddy.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Mr. Olympio?
Yeah. Andrew, I wish you all the best. You've been a tremendous asset to this committee for almost 4 years now, and I'm just thoroughly impressed with the way your passion, and honestly, when I have disagreed with you on some positions, you made me think. You made me think, you made me stop, you made me think, and it was just very healthy debates, and you have such a tremendous future. You're a tremendous asset to this community. And just keep doing what you're doing, and the sky's the limits for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Mr. Huckman?
Thank you. Mr. Arnottis, I'm going to reserve all my accolades for in December of this year, because I fully expect that you're going to complete your term, and you'll be with us for quite some time.
Yes.
I did want to just point out that, you're announcement at this early date is representative of the amount of
Right.
class that you have.
Thank you.
To give others an opportunity to know your thoughts in terms of what your future holds, and to give them time to discuss things with their family, to make decisions about whether or not they want to seek to serve on the school committee here in Peabody. So just representative of who you are and who you'll always be. My personal thoughts about you in general we'll get to in December, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Plenty of time.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mrs. Dunn?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I am just really grateful that Andrew told me earlier, and as I told him, so that I could cry off camera, because it has been a joy to work with him. And you've been shining since you were a student at the high school. So it's been so nice to see what you've done, and to be excited for you to be going into all kinds of new venues. And I give you a lot of credit for that. And I'm just really happy for you, but sad, selfishly, very sad, because it's been a joy to work with you. And so you'll hear a lot more in December, not right now, but thank you.
And you got 10 more months to serve with us.
Plenty of time to
10 more months. All right, excellent. Appreciate everybody.
Move to put Mr. on notice of any committee chairmanships that he has.
Right.
Well, actually, we can have a big birthday party and a send-off in
Yeah.
December.
Oh, yeah, I know, we'll be
Yeah.
in person.
There we go.
There
We're all going to need to party eventually.
Birthday week. Yeah.
So thank you, everyone, for a very good meeting, productive meeting. And again, our next regular school committee meeting will be February 23rd. Thanks, everyone.